Hello, welcome to a training video on visual circuits in the Harrier. Today we're at Anderson, holding short of runway 24 right, and I'm going to go through how I set up the cockpit to get more situational awareness out of the aircraft, and the habits that I've built to make sure that I don't forget anything and perform the circuit safely. So the two things about situational awareness and habits are the sooner you build them and build that experience, the less task saturated you will become, and the more spare mental capacity you will have, and therefore you'll feel more confident and be able to respond to threats to the task more quickly. So because I'm doing a visual circuit and I don't need any particular visual references on my moving map, they would actually detract from my situational awareness because I should be looking outside the cockpit as much as possible, not inside. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the moving map off. And next, I'm going to change the color to something a bit more suitable for me. And I'm going to bring the scale down to 5. The next most important thing with the Harrier is that you want to have your course line set up on the runway, preferably. Again, with the Harrier, it's good to build the habits of having an accurate distance and delta distance to the designated landing area, because this will become extremely important when you're doing VSTOL operations, as you start picking particular heights and distances for different gates during the approach and the key. So in this instance, we can see here we've actually got a waypoint off to our left, just sitting over the number 3 there, and we can see that it says 1.8 nautical miles. The reason this is in this scenario, we were expecting runway 06 left, so our waypoint is on the threshold of 06 left. We're going to have to change that to 24 right in this example, and I'll come on to that in just a moment, because we'll need to be on the runway to do that. However, if you have everything set up properly and the waypoints are in the right position, what you do is you just go ahead and put the course line in, which in this case for Anderson is going to be 245. There we go. Okay. And the reason you want the course line is you get a delta distance. You can see down there in the bottom right, you've got that Greek delta symbol, and it says 0.1 nautical miles. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set the jet up. So we're going to do our one finger checks for a conventional takeoff. So one finger checks for conventional takeoff. Water's going to be off in this scenario because the outside air temperature is less than 20 degrees and more than 0 degrees. Combat water is going to be on. Our flaps are going to come down to the auto position. Nose wheel steering we're going to leave on for the taxi, but we will turn it off in a moment. We're going to ensure our lights are on. We're going to ensure our stow stop's clear, and we're going to move the nozzles forward to 10 degrees. And we're going to turn our anti-collisions on, and then at this point we would radio the tower and we would say something to the effect of Ninja 11, ready departure. Okay, now let's assume we're being given either a clearance to line up or a clearance to take off. Hold the brakes, turn the parking brake off, gently add some power. Again, I'm holding the brakes a bit like a hill start in a car because we're on a hill. And we're just going to taxi forward. Good look out into the runways, move forward and into the approach area along the final area. Nice and bumpy here at Anderson. Okay. Line ourselves up nicely on the runway. At this point we're going to turn the nose wheel steering off. And we're going to just stop there. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to pop the parking brake on because I'm going to do this quite slowly, but you want to get proficient at doing this quickly. Now, at this point, you should already have the QFE. If you don't have the QFE already, then you may need to provide it to the controller. Alternatively, as you can see, Anderson's really bumpy. It's important for the QFE to read 0 when you're on the designated landing area. So sometimes it's helpful for the controller for you to give them an updated QFE. So to do that, we're going to come down to our altimeter here. And we're going to scroll down until it reaches 0. Now note that I scroll just until it reaches 0. It's important that you don't keep scrolling down, because you can see here I'm still scrolling down, and the altimeter stops at 0, and that can give you a false reading. So in this case, it's 2930 inches. And you might want to radio the tower and say something to the effect of Anderson Tower, Ninja 1-1. He will respond and ask you to send your message, and then you will say something to the effect of Anderson Tower, Ninja 1-1 update, QFE is reading 29.30 on the threshold of 24 right. And that might be some useful information for him. Whether or not he decides to update that for everyone is then up to him. Okay, next is the fact that our waypoint for our designated landing area is reading all the way over there. Now you might think, well, to save time, why don't we just use the DMT whilst we're on the threshold to designate the landing area? Now, yes, logically you could do this. However, given how shallow the angle is between the nose and where the designated landing area is, it's likely that because of DCS logic and the way the DMT works, that it might lock something up much further away and give you an inaccurate position. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the target of opportunity option here. We're going to select waypoint here, and then we're going to put it to whatever the designated landing waypoint is. In this case, it's 1, so we're just going to press 1, and then we're going to hit enter to overwrite it. You can now see that waypoint snap to our position, and it reads 0. And this is a good way to update your designated landing area. Okay. So now I like to raise my seat slightly, and I like to set my cockpit up as such. So assuming you know how to do your 1-finger and 2-finger checks from the takeoff video, I'm going to skip that now just for the expedience of time. And I'm actually going to bring the hood up on here. The reason we do this is if we fly into the sun, you won't be able to see over the hood in front of you, and it's helpful to glance down and reference that hood there. Okay, perfect. So brakes are on, parking brake's going to come off. Now I've only got 50% fuel here, so my nose wheel lift-off speed is going to be 135 knots, so my trim's 2 degrees nose down. I'm going to hold the brakes. I'm going to advance the power to full. I'm going to hold the nose wheel steering button. As the aircraft skids, I'm going to let go of the brakes, and I'm going to track runway center line. At 45 knots, I'm going to let go of the nose wheel steering button, and at 135 knots, half stick back, guard over rotation, bring the power back a little bit. We're nice and light, so we're going to shoot off. Gears coming up, flaps getting left where they are, and I'm aiming for about 200 knots in the climb, and I'm looking to climb at about 10 degrees. I'm looking down at my moving map just to make sure I'm on the center line, and I'm referencing that by looking down below. We're going to level out at 1,000 feet here, and we're going to bring the power back a little bit because we don't want to get too carried away. Okay, now that we're trimmed and we're happy, we're going to start a right-hand turn. So look out into the turn, and then start to turn. And we're going to aim to be between 1 and 1.2 nautical miles delta distance when we reach the downwind. So looking out in the turn, looking over the hood at my parameters, looking down to get my delta distance. 0.5 through 90 degrees, so that's good. And I'm looking into the turn, and I'm looking over the instruments, and I'm looking down. And we're at 1 mile now, so we need to tighten that up a little bit. So I'm just going to add a bit of power and pull back. And there's 1.2. We're going to end up a little wide here, but we can correct it. Roll wings level, bring the power back a little bit because I added it during the turn. And we're at 1.3, a little wide. This is the point at which I make my downwind call, just before the downwind threshold, and I'd start setting up for the landing. So my gear's going to come down. Let the aircraft stabilise, look out attitude instruments all the way around. There we go, it's 160 knots, and we're at 1.2. Reference that delta distance, reference the track, and line it up. Add the power, and I'm now trimming for between 10 and 12 units of AOA on the downwind with my gear down. Okay. And coming up, we're reaching the threshold. There they are, the piano keys in the center of my field of view. And what we're going to do at that point is we're going to call final. So that would be something to the effect of Ninja 1-1 final for green. At that point, there would then be a natural pause for the controller to get back to you. Once he gets back to you, you would start turning. That would naturally be about 10 seconds. We're 5 seconds in, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bring the power back a little, start your turn. Little bit of rudder there, as you can see, looking for between 10 and 12 units of AOA, and we're looking to be at about 600 to 500 feet when we're passing through the 90-degree position. So we're a little bit high, so I'm just going to bring the power down, which is the rate of descent, and I'm going to lower the nose to keep my AOA good. So we're a little high. There's 700 feet, we're still turning, and we want to be at about 300 when we roll out. AOA is a little high, so I'm just going to bring the nose down and add the power to control rate of descent. 400 feet, 300, 350, 330, at 0.7 miles, perfect. Adjusting the power for rate of descent and adjusting the nose for AOA. And as we're getting close, witch's hat on the horizon, adjust power to get below 500 feet per minute. And touchdown. Track center line, add power. We're going to go for a touch and go. Straight away, half stick back, let the plane come up, guard over rotation, bring the gear up, bring the nozzles forward.
Altitude.
So as you can see, everything happens very, very fast. You need to stay ahead of the jet. .800 feet. Going to bring the nose down, and we're going to look to fly straight and level at about 1,000 feet. Okay, good look out into the turn. We're good. Let's start our turn. And again, we're looking to be at about 250 knots and a delta distance of 1.2 miles. It's a little fast here, and we're going to be a little wide again, so you can see I'm tightening that turn up quite significantly. There's 1 nautical mile on the delta distance. This is not a good example of a circuit. We're going to roll wings level there. We're at 1.5, so I'm just going to point in toward the runway a little bit. Okay, power's good, height's a little high. Still pointing in toward the runway a little bit. It's 1.3, so we can start turning out now. There's 1.2. So now we're going to turn to match the downwind, and that's how you would correct an inaccurate downwind position. I would make my downwind call now, and I bring my gear down. Aircraft's going to balloon as the gear comes down and the flaps come down to compensate for the loss in lift from a decreased airspeed. And we're going to let the aircraft slow down, and we're going to bring the nose up gently, again for 10 to 12 units of AOA. I would make my downwind call here, and we're going to time for 10 seconds from 2.2 to 3.2. Full power, trim. Three 2 seconds, we're going to come back on the power. Let the nose drop, again, bringing the power back to adjust that rate of descent, using the nose to adjust AOA, and we're looking for between 10 and 12 units, and we want to be at about 600 feet as we pass the 90. Okay, there's 600 feet, we're going to tighten this turn up a little bit. Again, I'm mainly just looking at the runway, but I am also referencing my delta distance, and I'm focusing on those gated heights. So, a little bit loose in the first half of that turn, meant we need to tidy up loads. There we go, 300 feet at about 0.7, 0.8 miles. This time I can put the witch's hat much closer to the horizon. Just in the power. We've got a solid rate of descent there, so I'm going to add a little bit of power. Bring the nose onto the horizon, hold it there, and let the aircraft touch down on its own. Obviously, this runway is very bumpy, so you end up touching down quite late if you don't get it right. Okay, we're going to add the power, and we're going to gently back. There we go. Looking for 200 in the climb, and we're putting ourselves about 10 degrees on the ladder. And we're going to pitch forward, and we're going to bring the power back. Remember, I'm looking at that velocity vector more than anything else here. So add a little bit of power because we're slow, and look out, and we're going to start our turn. Remember, you can put in bootfuls of rudder with a Harrier to help you get those nice tight turns. It's absolutely fine. Okay, 0.5, and we're at the 90. 0.7 as we pass through the end of the 90. So again, we're going to be a little loose, so a bit more rudder and a bit more roll. 1.2. 1.3, we're going to move this level. Passing the downwind, going to make my radio call, and we're going to put the gear down. There it goes. And we're at 1.1, so I'm going to turn back out. So see how I'm only doing one thing at a time, otherwise I become task saturated. And I'm going to bring the power back and start trimming for my 10 to 12 units of AOA. There we go, we're timing now up to 0.5. There we go, 0.5, bring the power back to adjust the rate of descent, bring the nose down with it to adjust our AOA, and kick in the rudder along with a good amount of roll. .800 feet and we're approaching the 90, so we need to be a bit lower. There we go, 600 feet as we approach the 90. Again, we're a little bit wide here, well outside of airway limits, because we started a bit too close. Not a very good example of a landing here. Just let it settle.
Power.
I'm gonna add some power. Bring the nose on the horizon. Just let it descend, no more than 500 feet per minute. Okay, and we'll do one more. Power's full, nozzle's 10. Gently easing back, guard the road rotation, bring the power back. Gears coming up, nozzle's coming forward, and we're climbing at about 10 on the ladder at about 200 knots. Referencing there and looking outside. Looking for 1,000 feet, pitch forward now. Bring the power back so it doesn't run away with us. Good lookout. And we're going to start our turn. We're going to make it nice and tight. And we're going to aim for about 0.3 to 0.4 on the 90 here, just to try and adjust for where we roll out. So there is a little bit of test and adjust as you go, depending on the weather conditions. So we're at 0.7, 0.6 on the 90. And there's 0.1, bit of back pressure. 0.2, rolling out. Okay, 0.3, but good. Speed's at about 230, which is fine for the downwind. And we're approaching the threshold. I'd make my radio call. And I'd stick my gear down. Okay, gear's coming down. Just my position, 1.2 there, so I'm just going to bring it out a bit. Looking out into the downwind. We'll start bringing our speed back now to adjust our AOA. 1.1, so we are creeping a little close. And time 10 seconds. Up to 12. There's 12 seconds, let's start our turn. Using power to adjust my AOA, to adjust my rate of descent, and the stick to adjust my AOA. There we go, there's a good rate of descent. Kicking plenty of rudder. AOA is a little bit off, so drop the nose, add the power to adjust the rate of descent. At 600 feet, good stuff. We're going to continue to turn. And we're looking at rollout at about 320 feet at 0.7, 0.5 knots. So a little low. AOA is good. Adding a bit of power. Looking for 500 feet per minute. And nose on the horizon. Jet's floating a bit, just let it touch down. There's the touchdown. Close the power, bring the nozzles all the way back. Add power no more than 60 RPM. This is positive nozzle braking. Using rudder to keep on center line. We're looking for about 50 knots. Okay. Close the power, reset the nozzles to 40, and apply toe brakes. And now we can turn on the nose wheel steering and continue to ground handle. I hope you found this video useful and seen that it's actually quite difficult to fly the circuit perfectly, and you will always miss out one part of it. The important thing is to think ahead to the next step in the circuit. And also that the more you do this, the more you'll recognize when you've made a mistake and what actions you need to take. For example, if you're rolling out late on the downwind and therefore have a greater delta distance than 1.2, you need to try and turn a little bit tighter during the turn, maybe slow down a bit if performance allows you to do so, so that you can decrease that turn-in radius. And checkpoint yourself earlier on the 90, so instead of 0.5, maybe checkpoint yourself on the 90 at 0.3 or 0.4. Again, with the final turn, you might find that you're too close to the runway and that causes you to turn really tight. That can be quite dangerous. You can see that you can get a very high AOA from rolling too far and having too low of a power setting in order to adjust that rate of descent. If that happens, you may find that you need to go around, and then just make sure that as you fly along the downwind, you're not allowing yourself to get too close. Do one task at a time. Make sure you maintain a good cycle. Look out the cockpit. Check your attitude and parameters by looking over the hood, looking at your airspeed, your altitude, and your velocity vector for indicators of whether you are needing a particular input. Maybe it's a bit of nose down or a bit less power, maybe it's nose up or a bit more power. And then look down at your your EHSD for information as to whether or not you need to adjust left or right. Thank you very much for watching.